you've got your tea.
Got my
Well
tea.
done. Well
We
done.
don't usually do it with a camera though.
We don't. It's intimidating. And even just like the performance,
Yeah,
right?
aspect of
Like
it. Yeah,
wanting to do it right.
yeah. The perfection part of me is like,
Yeah.
I've got to a point where I'm not even worried about like posting a podcast. I'm more like, I'm like, oh, it has to be this good, or like, which is against the
Yeah.
whole point of it. Like,
Yeah.
it's the point of it's like not meant to be that at all. It's just meant to be shit.
Yeah. Literally. How do we get past that? I think we just
Well, we're talking right now, aren't we?
dive in.
Yeah. So, yo, what up?
Nice. I'm actually quite curious to hear what being vulnerable is to you.
To me, so the name of the podcast, Vulnerable Conversations Over Tea. I guess vulnerability, I guess it doesn't come easy, especially with growing up as a male, household full of 4 boys. I think vulnerability is probably different to everyone. So I guess what you're scared of doing, or scared of saying, or scared of being perceived as, anything that I guess where fear arises creates a opportunity for vulnerability. And vulnerability can be, for instance, this right now. I think vulnerability is like a bit of a superpower too. Like I think if you're vulnerable with someone, then I think we all kind of have these walls up of how we want to be perceived as people, and it's not who we really are, but it's how we want to, or how we think we should be perceived, and we act in a certain way to be that. And when someone is vulnerable and I guess being truthful about who they are, or like facing their fears or whatever it is, it kind of, I think it relaxes people into a conversation where you can really connect with another person. Like it's like it gives permission to other people to be themselves. Like people when they're like vulnerable with me, it's just like there's this shield up against who you really are around people, and it's like everyone just drops that and relaxes, and then can be like create a real connection with people. So I think vulnerability is just like this crazy superpower that we're so scared of doing.
Yeah, that's the contradiction, right? Like you're trying so hard to be liked and loved and find love in the world through putting on this face, but the real way to be loved and find love is by taking off that face and just being in it, letting it happen. It's so and we chatted recently about how contradictions are a good path to follow. Recently I've been like struggling to find which path to follow, right? And I think that it probably doesn't really matter as much which way you go. I think with
what's your two paths? Are they contradicting, like conflicting? What's the be vulnerable?
So the one that's like coming to my mind right now is like I just shaved my head, right?
Yeah.
I
love it.
So yeah, it's fun, right? I was so scared of what people would think, right? And if it looked bad, right? But I wanted to do it, right? Like just I don't know what you would call it, gut feeling, intuition, like a little voice in the back of your head that's kind of growing and growing.
Yeah.
Just like something you should do, but you're too scared, so you come up with these reasons as to why you wouldn't do it. And sometimes that's so believable, but you just kind of got like not listen to it in a way, but listen to intuition, and the way to like distinguish between the two is, I think, what would make me more vulnerable. Like what is more fearful?
Yeah, and that's 100% exactly like the same point of view. Like I'm reading this book right now called Breaking the Habit of Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and it just talks about
sick. Yeah, right.
So you've got your true self.
Yeah.
And like our innate intuition, like as babies, as growing up, we have to fit in, and we have to seek love. We have to seek love because we need to be nurtured as a baby. We need people to love us. And the second is obviously fitting in, because if we don't fit in, then we're not a part of the group. We don't survive.
Yeah.
So we create this character based on how we think we can fit in best. So there's these two layers. There's our true self, and then there's how we really feel, and then there's this character that we play to be able to fit in and get love, and it's how we think we want people to see us. So it's not necessarily like people want us to be this way, but it's how we perceive them wanting us to be, and we be that character. People don't want to see me being sad all the time. They don't want me to do this, so I'm not going to act that way. And we just create this character to be able to fit in. And then there's this gap. So there's this gap between who we really are and the character that we're playing to fit in. And the bigger the gap gets, the more we choose that other path, as you just said. So you keeping that hair because you think that's how you want people to be, is you creating that gap even bigger. You're going away from who who you are, and that vulnerable feeling, if you're avoiding that for you might be that feeling to knowing you're closing that gap because to who you really are. Because the reason we open that gap up is because we don't want to feel how we really feel. Because if we feel how we really feel, then that's scary. It's that feeling of vulnerability. It's not a nice feeling at the start. It's scary.
Terrifying.
But by you choosing to shave your head, you're narrowing that gap. You're sitting with that feeling of vulnerability. And initially that doesn't necessarily feel the best, because you're like, oh, how are other people going to perceive me? What if I'm not who they think I am? Am I still going to be able to fit in? So you're opening that gap, and we usually distract ourselves with whatever we can to feeling these things.
Literally, because you always know, right? Like you can always kind of, I don't know if it's a knowing or if it's like I don't really know the right kind of way to explain how we view what the true self wants. So it's like an urge or like a desire, I would say, but it's not. I don't know. It doesn't feel like a selfish desire, but I guess I've been kind of stuck the past year on distinguishing which part is that character self and which part is that true self, is what I'm trying to get at, I think. But I feel like that voice, the true self voice, however you would describe it, however you experience it, is getting louder in my life. And it's getting harder to ignore, which is an incredible feeling. It's just kind of like forcing me down this path of like, you're gonna have to do it, otherwise it's just gonna eat you up. And because once you understand that it's really making your life, more difficult, and because we don't have to be a part of the tribe to get food, right?
Not anymore. No,
not anymore. You know what I mean? So our brain just needs to like let go a little bit, which I've really been trying to lean into a lot more, and it's a great feeling.
It is. It's beautiful.
It's an incredible feeling.
That's where I think meditation is just this super, like, I don't know, man. I don't know how to explain it and what meditation has given to me, but like the quote this morning on the meditation app was, the thing about meditation is that you become more and more you. The more you meditate, the more you become you. And for me, that's how I distinguish between the two. Is if I'm caught up in being distracted by my phone, you know, like work. I've realized now if I'm stressing, it's because I'm caught up in this character. Like even, you know, like mowing my lawn, cleaning my house. Why do I need to do that straight away? It's because I'm worried about how people might perceive me. You know, what if my house isn't clean? People come over. You know, like what?
People hate you.
Yeah, everyone will hate me. Like,
you're not gonna get any food.
Yeah,
you're not gonna be able to survive.
Man. It comes back to these safety mechanisms, and my two safety mechanisms are, you know, one, it's perfectionism because, you know, if I don't do this properly, if I don't do this right, if I'm not correct 100% of the time, you know, then people won't love me. You know, like it's this fear of not being accepted. So for me, I have to show people how good I am, or like, you know, that I'm perfect. So, you know, you have to accept me. Like I'm right, so you can't say I'm wrong. Like this fear of being wrong, man, is like debilitating. And then the other one is, as we were just talking about then, it's like that, you know, like it's that stress of, you know, making, you know, having enough money, making things clean, like trying to create this perfect image of who I am. Which is just crazy. Like when you think about it, when you sit down, you meditate, and you're like, everyone's so caught up in their own stuff. No one's thinking about
how clean your house is.
Like, it's the stupidest thing in the world. But if you don't bring that, and that's what meditation gives you, is there's that opportunity to come into that, like you said before, like let go of all that shit that we think we need to care about, and just take a break for a second and relax, and it just gets rid of all the shit in your mind. And then you can be like, oh, this is what actually means something to me. Like this is what I want to prioritize as my intention. Like, I don't know. I think, and for you, that's probably like yoga would help with that. I think for people, exercise is a really good thing as well. It helps people, I guess, clear that out. But I try to think of like when I'm stuck in that situation, you know, who am I when I meditate? That's the real me.
How do you do you describe it? Like, would you be able to?
Yeah, so I actually wrote this morning. So I've been having
lay it on us.
Like for me, you want to talk about vulnerability? Like this podcast is probably like the most like vulnerable, and that's why I knew I had to do it. Like you said before, you know, like with your haircut, you know, that was the vulnerable thing to do, so you did it. You know, that's how you know. For me as well, like you need to do it because, you know, you're facing. That means there's a fear there. You know, there's that. Then and that's like I was talking about before, like that gap between who you really are and that character. Underneath that, in between, is shame, guilt, you know, all these emotions that you get growing up thinking you have to be this person, you know, like it creates all these emotions that, and then you avoid those emotions because, and it's just this cycle.
And they grow, right? Like when you're not
reinforce each other. Like I wrote this morning, like I call it like my inner child, like, because that's, you get these habits when you're growing up, you know, my inner child still thinks I'm fucking 9 years old, you know, like, and so my safety mechanism is to hide, it's to play small. So like doing this is the complete opposite of that. It's like, so this morning it was like I woke up and it was just like I had a bit of a tired brain, like jet lag and stuff, but you know, those thoughts are strong. It's like this little kid inside of me is just like yelling, hide, like play small, don't do this, you know, which just tells me like I need to do it more and more.
Need to do it more.
And then there's this other part of me that's just like so excited, like so motivated, inspired, because this is what I want to do, man. Like I just love talking about the universe and our brains and like all our shit. I love talking about that. Like I could talk about this for hours, you know, and that's what I want to do. Like I want to go deep inside people's souls and like find out what actually really means something, you know, like I just want to talk about that. I'm so inspired by that. Like, and I love listening to that. And I love talking to you about that. Like it's, you know, at the end of the day, like who gives a shit what people think? Like at the end of the day, I get to have these conversations with my brother. Like you can't lose. Like,
agreed.
You know what I mean, man? Like it doesn't, if one person listens to this and like wants to have a conversation with me like about this stuff, I've won. You know what I mean? Like, that's
That's a
all this is
success.
about.
Yeah.
And for me, like I've, that vulnerability of, of now that I'm doing it, it's like I'm facing that fear. And so I've already won. And like you said, like that if I didn't do this, I'm then being that character and I'm creating this gap and it reinforces the cycle. I would have shame because I couldn't do it, like, oh, I play small, I'm not that person, I'm scared, I can't be
Judging
vulnerable.
mind.
Yeah, so it reinforces that character and makes me further away from my true self, even though that character wants me not to do it. It's just like this cycle, so for me, yeah, like vulnerability, it's, it gives you, it's facing your fears, I guess, and that's different for everyone. Like, and then that's the hard thing is like, for one person, like jumping out of a plane is facing their fears. For another person, that's something they love to do. But yeah, I think for me, this is probably one of the most vulnerable things I can do.
Time to open up. Time to give in. Let go. Let go of the Adam character. I like the I think it's a really good and important awareness. Like one that I've come across recently is that judging part of when you don't do it. And it's just so easy to get, because a lot of the time, like I don't do it. You know what I mean? Like this is one thing that we are doing, which is awesome. Like so good. But there is so many times throughout the day where I would just get like something would happen and the right thing to do, but you just don't do it in that moment, right? And then the moment passes and it's gone, and you're just like, oh, like who am I? You know what I mean? The kind of guy who doesn't do that. But I think doing stuff like this, the smaller stuff, creating that habit here will allow you to do that habit on bigger things as well, right? Which I think is important, right? Like it's like the whole, like if you can not pick up your phone when it vibrates, then you can, I don't know, not drive by a Macca's and get it, right? Like it's just like giving into that, like it's kind of all the same decision making.
Yeah.
In a way, I find it. So
those habitual thoughts, patterns.
Yeah, and a big one for me is that judgment mind after not doing it as well, which leads you further away from yourself.
Which is crazy because like what's the purpose of that judgment mind? Is
of
it
that shame?
Yeah. And then it actually makes you further away from even doing it again.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know how much you would agree, but I think my judgment mind is probably one of my more prominent minds that I'm in a lot of the time, and that's my response to a lot of things. Is like the judgment, even good or bad. Like it's a mind that I'm now slowly becoming aware that is often there.
So
and
you're
I think
bringing that into your conscious awareness.
Yeah.
That quite a new thing to bring into your conscious awareness.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think being vulnerable for me would be really letting that go. Really like, and that would be
letting go of the illusion of control your brain thinks it has over who you are.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's got to do with control, doesn't it? Because if you judge yourself, you think, oh, I should have been able to do this. There's this idea that you actually had, control over the situation.
Yeah, 100%. And control is, I can see it when I never, like growing up, I always hated smoking weed, right? Always made me so anxious and just so terrified because it was letting go, you know what I mean? Like it was letting go of the control. You would like lose a bit of your memory, right? Like you would just become like, you would become just like not in control. And that I always hated that. And that's the reason why, like, I've never really done it that much, because it's just that letting go, which I'm so scared of. But I think it's cool to come to that awareness now, because that's how you get on top of it, right?
Well, it's hard because that control, that judgment has been such a like major factor of being able to get you to do things to get you to where you are. So like like you might, I think you probably, like me, have very strong analytic brain. You know, like especially in your job, that's very helpful. You know, being able to like judge, analyze, that type of thing, which is that prefrontal cortex. Front part of your brain, and make decisions. Like you're using that part of your brain all day. Like, you know, and
always judging.
Yeah, and it helps us, you know, fit into this character that we're playing that is successful in what they do. Like it makes us very successful at what we do. It's hard to then come out of that and switch that off when you know that, you know, you don't want to be using that in different moments. But unfortunately, we don't have that switch. And then you say like cycle, because you're reinforcing. You're like, oh, you then judge yourself for using the judging brain when you don't. And it's like, well, then you're just judging yourself for using that. And that's where that empathy, like for yourself, that loving kindness for yourself is so important, because you're like, you need to understand that brain is an important part of you still. Like it's not, you know, when we say like the difference between the character and the true self, it's not judging or like criticizing this character we're playing, because, you know, they've kept us safe in society for, you know, a long time. It's more about feeling empathy and kindness for this this character, and saying thank you for keeping me safe. But, you know, now I'm not 9 years old anymore. I'm 27. You know, I'm very capable. You know, like you know, and then changing those emotions, like changing it from, you know, when I feel shame, okay, sit with that feeling and be like, oh, that judgment, you know, that kind of makes you feel shame, and you're like, okay, I get why I feel this, but it's not how I want to feel anymore. And then changing that to a emotion that you do want to feel, you know, like for me, like a big one's trust. Like, can I trust the universe? Is this exactly where I'm meant to be right now? Feeling this exact thing? Like, this is the challenge. You know what I mean? Like your challenge is the emotions. You know what I mean? Like it's not avoiding when you're feeling judged by yourself. It's sitting with that emotion. Like avoiding that is just going to, you know, prolong it even further. Unfortunately, it just continues that cycle. At some point, you've got to, and you know, it's hard because we like don't want to be loving towards ourselves because we should be this way, you know, like, but that only then reinforces that narrative. You've actually, probably the hardest thing I even feel for you is showing yourself love and kindness. Like a big thing for you.
Agree.
Because you just can't get your head around it. Like, why should I do that? But if you don't, you know, these are important parts of who you're being. You can't just criticize them. You know, you got to show, and then practice that change, like you said before. Those little things, like you said, like, you know, not picking up the phone, not going to the Macca's, whatever it is. It's just it's a practice, and then obviously when you do succumb to those, it's just loving kindness. Like have a little laugh at yourself for doing it. Like
agree, and not following that shame, but being loving kindness towards that shame, right?
Yeah, you know, it's there for a reason. Like it's a habitual pattern. If you want to change that habitual pattern, you've got to bring it out into awareness. Which is, I'm saying these things, not saying it's easy to do, not saying I do it. You know what I mean? I fall into these patterns every day. Like,
agreed.
That's the challenge, isn't it? Like if you want to evolve and get to where you want to be, like it's not easy. It's a whole lifetime of doing this one, like thinking, having these thought patterns, and they've worked to get you where you are. It's not easy to change.
And let's let go of it.
It's funny you just say let go. When you meditate, it's like, oh, I gotta just let go of this stuff. Why can't it just be that easy?
It's not that hard to just sit back and witness
That's
it,
why we
right?
chase distraction, isn't it? Because like
Yeah,
we just don't want to think about how we're really feeling.
yeah,
And it's just we'll do anything. And the hard thing is that things work. Like looking at your phone does make you feel better for a short period of time.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, people taking drugs does make them feel better for a period of time. But there will come a point where that stops working.
yeah,
And the longer you take, if you get to that point, like in some people call it like the what are you, like rock bottom or whatever,
yeah,
it's the longer you leave it, the harder it is to. Like I think one of my, like, I'm just so grateful all the time that I started to get into meditation when I was like
yeah,
17, 18. Because like if I was 30 or 40, man, I would have missed so many years of my life just
yeah.
being so unaware. Like I barely remember
Mm,
much about myself before I started meditating. Like I was just so unconscious. I didn't want to feel anything, so avoidant. Um, because you're just trying to survive, I think,
yeah,
when you're conscious.
yeah. Agreed. How did you come across meditation?
um, so I had a bit of I was probably had an injury, like footy. I played a lot of footy growing up, AFL.
Yeah,
Um, and then when I was 16, I had an injury. Yeah, like it was my life. I do it all the time. Didn't really drink. Was very healthy. Did
yeah,
that like 4 days a week. It was everything. So then got an injury and I couldn't play for like 3 years. So as you do in Australia when you're turning 18, like 17, 18, you start drinking. And yeah, so I used, I guess, drinking as like a, I guess, I don't know, self-medicating, I guess.
mm,
Not wanting to feel anything. Like I had no distractions, so I guess I was very socially anxious growing up. Still
yeah,
am. Probably social anxiety is probably my thing that I struggle with most. Um, so yeah, to avoid that, to be social, because I love being social, was to drink, and it worked. It worked
yeah,
so well initially.
yeah,
It helped me like meet people, go out, have fun. I'd get along with so many people after a couple of drinks, and I'd have conversations, and it felt good. But then
yeah,
you wake up, you can't remember anything, and then after a period of time, it stops working, doesn't it? And
yeah.
so I think I had a panic attack one night, drinking
Wow.
everything. Wasn't great. And then woke up the next morning and I um, went and bought this book. I was like, that's enough. I need to change. Went and bought this book. It was not like it was really bad or anything, but
Mm.
wasn't great. Went and bought
How
this
old were
book.
you?
I was probably 18, 19,
Yeah,
maybe 19.
yeah,
Um, Bought this book called The Miracle Morning.
mm.
And it was just like get up an hour earlier. It didn't matter what the book was. I don't think it's that great of a book, but it was like get up
Yeah,
an hour earlier, do 10 minutes of exercise, 10 minutes meditating, journaling, and there was like a couple other things. So yeah, I just started for, I think meditating, I started for 2 minutes at a time.
oh,
Like
yeah,
so frustrates me. People say I can't meditate. Like,
yeah,
you know, but started journaling.
yeah,
I was pretty inconsistent for a while, but just
yeah,
over time, it just, I've gone through so many ups and like flows with meditation, but
yeah,
once it's just this crazy thing, you can't explain it to everyone, and you'd understand this once you have just this experience in meditation where you like, it's probably like the first time I was ever truly conscious and truly present,
mm,
and it's just this weight, that character we were talking about just wasn't there. Like it
yeah,
was just me, and it's just like it's the highest I've ever been is just off meditation,
yeah,
like meditation, breath work, and it's just the most freeing thing. And once you've seen that side, you
mm,
can't go back. It's like opening this door where, it's 10 times harder because you can't just shut your eyes and go through life.
yeah,
But it's also like it opens a door to everything. So you experience the highs and the lows, but
yeah,
you experience life a million times more. And
mm.
like it's exhilarating, and like I'm kind of jealous of people that just sometimes maybe like part of me is like I wish I never did it. I just closed my eyes and I got through life and I never thought
Went to
about anything.
sleep. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just unconscious.
dream the
But I
life
guess it's
away.
what people call like waking up a little bit. Like I don't think I'm
Mm,
conscious all the time. Like I don't
mm,
think I'm anything like that. But like it's opened me up to so many more things.
mm,
And yeah, I'm extremely grateful that happened at a
mm.
young age where I can now evolved over the last 10 years, my meditation practice anyway, to ups and downs of it, but to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Do you think I don't know how much you would have thought about this maybe, but do you think that's kind of your, like, do you think the waking up kind of part, or the realization of consciousness, like coming into the witness kind of state of mind, is like, do you kind of see that as, like, I might be projecting a little bit here just because I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita at the moment, and like taking it a bit Eastern, right? But do you see it as like your purpose to kind of wake up to this character self?
Yeah, I think I've always struggled with that idea of purpose, and I think there's like this. I think it's got a lot to do with like guilt and shame, and that playing small as well. Like, I don't feel like I can verbally say, like, because like it's contradicting, because there's a part of me that will never be satisfied with what I do, and I think I can do anything. But then there's also this other part that's like so shameful and like hidden, and like will play myself down a lot, like, and will play small. I guess, but to be vulnerable, to say like what I think my like purpose. I think if I was talking about my true self, it would have to do something with evolving myself through my meditation as much as possible, and facing my fears. Like changing those habitual patterns to become more and more conscious. I'd say that. And I kind of think of it as, it's like generations evolving, isn't it? Like, if I can evolve a little bit more than the generation before me, and then help my next generation, I guess,
Do the
evolve.
healing.
Yeah, I don't think it's just that it's that Eastern point of view, is like of their view of reincarnation, like this could be my soul, this could be its 1000th iteration. It's just like evolving a little bit each time. So if I can become a little bit more conscious on this iteration. And I think that's obviously hard to do, because we're taught, success is, money, jobs. And so it's easy to get distracted in that other world. When all you truly need to do is just, evolve yourself. But
sit down
and
for 20 minutes.
Look after itself. But what about you? What do you think your purpose?
We've talked about this before, but I love the idea of healing the habitual patterns. Like, I find that so freeing to, like, I just want to get to a point where I can kind of just like trust myself, right? Like, I feel as when I'm in witness mind, or how I would describe witness mind, like being able to see what I've been doing, and if I'm caught up in stuff, right? Like, I would like, I don't know if this is even obtainable, but to just watch and trust, right? I feel like there's a serious and just like involvement in what happens. And I mean, I guess I would just even describe it as an attachment to what happens. And I think one of my biggest purposes, I think it's just like what I'm feeling right now, and this will probably change in a month's time. I'm sure you know that. But just trusting that I don't need to, alter. Like, my brain will figure it out, kind of a thing, without this kind of stress of involvement, because realistically, right, we're probably not involved as much as we'd like to
100%.
think. Like realistically, it's like
Illusion.
yeah, it's an illusion that I and I'm hanging on to this illusion because am I really scared to let go of my control, or am I too scared to accept that I never had any?
100%. I
Right?
love it.
I
Well,
just
it's
got
this
there
thing,
in
man.
my
It's
head
just
just
like
then.
this
That was
idea. If this thing's gonna happen, like if there's something that's gonna happen, it's like this thing, like our brains. So like you've got a flight at 5 o'clock, right? It's helpful when your brain tells you reminds you at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Oh, you gotta catch a plane. All right, all right, I'm ready. Everything's ready. But if your brain's telling you every 30 seconds,
yeah,
you've got to catch this plane because it's so scared of missing it.
yeah,
Like, is that helpful? And it comes down to that illusion of control. Your brain thinks it can control the whole situation
yeah,
by, I guess, it's that anxiety, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
and depending on what it is, it's like
yeah,
our brains obsess over or attach to things,
yeah.
and whereas if you can just trust that you're going to get on that plane anyway, and then you
And
wouldn't have all this residual anxiety and stress
yeah,
all day leading up to that particular thing.
yeah. And if you didn't
That's
catch the
kind of
plane,
what you mean, or
and if you didn't catch the plane either,
yeah,
like then you
it
got to
doesn't
trust that
matter.
you
It wasn't
weren't
meant to
meant to catch the
be.
plane. Yeah.
I
Like
read this thing the other day. Actually, I've just been traveling, and like planes are a
yeah,
big thing for me. It actually
yeah,
helps me a lot with trust because, like,
yeah,
when you're driving or something's happening, you got this illusion of control. Like, or even in
yeah.
passenger seat of a car, you think, "Oh, I might be able to control this," but you're in the plane, man. You're in a plane, 300 people, and there's one person driving, and there's not a single thing you can do. Like for me, as a control freak, that's taught me so much trust, and it's actually freeing when I go, oh shit,
Yeah.
I can't do anything, and I actually relax because I'm like, I have no control over
Forced to
this.
do
I
nothing.
might crash and die, like it might happen. So there's
Yeah,
no point worrying about it in this moment. Like it's actually kind of freeing not having that. But in a lot of situations, like you said, we have this illusion of control, even though we
yeah,
probably never had any control over it
yeah,
at all.
yeah. Reading I told you that I was recently reading Ram Dass's
Yeah, love.
biography.
Yeah.
Um I wrote something down that really resonated, and it said what we think of as reality is a conceptual thought of what we think it is. We're afraid that if we give it up, that if we give up thinking, we give up free will and will succumb to someone else's power. But giving up conceptual thinking is not so scary after all. And that's all he said. And he just like it's not so scary.
Oh man.
And yeah. And yeah, his story is amazing. His
Mm,
like how he talks from the journey of the mind to the heart,
mm.
and like in that plane scenario, right? Your mind freaking out, wanting control, and your heart's just like trust.
Trust.
Trust, you know what I mean? Like they're the two voices, and
Oh,
I mean they're the two
goosebumps.
sides, and yeah, you listen to your heart in that one,
Yeah.
which is yeah. I mean, if
And that's for me, that's the power of meditation, man, because I've become
yeah,
more and more that person, that more and more the heart,
the heart,
listen to
yeah.
myself, the heart more and more.
Probably talking about the same thing, right? Like
Yeah,
the
like that.
the two characters, the journey from the mind to the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
cool.
just experience, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
and that's the funny thing. We rely on so many external things to determine how we feel.
yeah,
We forget that it's not that way at all. Like
yeah.
it's
It's all how we perceive it,
yeah, you'll
right?
perceive your external world based on how you feel.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
If I feel shit, I'll find a way for whatever I'm doing to feel negative. Like I'll find
yeah,
a narrative as to why I feel that way.
yeah. And it's
You
so
know?
easy, right?
Yeah, it's so easy. Like I can
Yeah,
find a reason to be annoyed at you right now. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
your fault. Like
yeah, yeah. And when you're happy, you can be in a shit scenario, but fine. the good in it, right?
Exactly.
So easily.
But
Yeah.
you've got this idea that there's good and bad emotions.
Yeah.
And so then our brain thinks, oh, we should be happy all the time. And
Yeah.
this is the problem, is we all think we should be happy all the time. And
Yeah.
then that creates that cycle of, why am I not feeling this way? And it means we can't sit with our emotions. And you'll find that if you sit with your emotion for 30 seconds, it'll probably dissipate. Like it'll release its like attachment to it. Like if you don't, and that's like you said, like it's all about attachment to experience. The experience doesn't give a shit about anything. It's just an experience. Like what is happening is just happening. It's not happening because of all these reasons. It's just,
it's not happening to you.
And it's always going to happen. It's just this thing, how we feel. We try to attach our emotions and our perceptions of reality to these things that are happening and create these narratives.
And you think it's your experience, right?
Yeah.
Like you think the experience belongs to you.
Exactly. It's
in
happening.
a way.
Yeah. But if you can step back, just like on the plane, being like, this is the experience. I don't get to decide the experience. Like no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And then you can sit with how you feel. And then you can actually change how you feel too, because you can be like, you know, trust, let go, you know, focus. Like how big thing for me is how is trying to like correct that negative bias that we all have towards negative things. To like, how is the universe loving me right now? Like what's 3 good things that's happened in the last 10, like whatever it is, you can always find it. And you know, it actually helps. Like crazy that in my job, I'm just finding these little things. Like it's crazy that, you know, 5 things you see right now, like 2 things you hear, 3 things you smell, like brings you, like little things like that brings you into presence, like 5 deep breaths. I know it's so simple. Oh yeah, just have 5 deep breaths and you feel better. But it's not the point. It's a continual practice. Like and these little things actually work. Like it's just amazing how small things can have such a big impact on your perception of reality.
Agreed. You're like actively changing your mindset right there. Like, right? Like you are actively, like I don't really know how the neurology works, but actively creating a new neural pathway, right? When a situation is bad, you can look at it good.
Yeah. Yeah, you create those new
and if that's a habitual pattern, you know what I mean?
But people don't like it because it takes practice. It's not. It's an intentional practice that you've got to do that. And I don't know. Like for me, my morning practice is just so important. I wake up each morning and don't want to do it. My character wants to distract. Oh, I don't want to sit there with my feelings. I don't want to feel annoyed or sad or, you know, I don't want to. But I know if I sit there and do it, I'll feel so amazing after. And I can correct those habitual thoughts. And it is tough. Some days, don't get me wrong, I sit with my, you know, this morning wasn't easy, like, because I knew we were doing this, which is scary. It's like run, and it wouldn't stop. But I had to sit with it.
I was literally so like, oh, maybe he's forgotten. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why, like, man, like, I knew. Yeah.
I think there's something so special about group mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're kind of holding each other accountable.
100%.
It's so big.
Doing this.
Yeah.
But it is like, for me, I think it might not be the same for you, but because you're a bit younger, but I'm at a point now where I'm like a couple of years ago, I changed my career, like, and I was probably at like wit's end. Like I wasn't good mentally. Like even though I was doing my meditation and everything, I knew something had to change, and it took me so long to make the decision to do it. Like so long, man. Like, and it was horrible until I did it. So now I'm like, when I know I need to do something, you know, like I know how shit I'm gonna feel if I don't do it. You know, and having you as accountability makes it a lot easier.
Eat that cookie, man.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, this podcast for me isn't about, you know, creating a brand or like creating this big podcast or whatever. Like for me, it's just like something I knew I needed to challenge myself with, is to be vulnerable, like face that fear. And, you know, I get to talk to my brother, have these mad conversations that I love. Like if I could have these conversations all day, like it's all I want to do. Like,
you know, it'd be unreal.
And if I could meet one more person, because man, I can count on my hands the amount of like I've been doing this for like wanting to talk about this stuff for like the last 10 years. Like I've been so interested in this stuff, the brain, nutrition, exercise, everything, man. Like fascinates me. And I can count on like on my hands the amount of people I've had like real connection, like vulnerable conversations with about this stuff. And I get there's other people that everyone wants it. Like but to bring down that shield isn't easy. And and I'm just so sick of having conversations that are just so meaningless. Like we both know we're just playing this game. Oh yeah, hey, it's just distracting.
Like at the start of our phone calls every single time.
Yeah.
Like, you see the footy.
Just takes one person to be vulnerable, and it just breaks down those walls.
Yeah.
So if there's out of this we meet one or two people that fucking loves to chat at us, it's that's all it is.
That'd be awesome.
If we could imagine if we could create like a community, like
a community.
Oh, I didn't tell this story. So like the name of the podcast is Vulnerable Conversations Over Tea. So we've talked about vulnerability, but like why conversations over tea? So for me, like the conversations over tea is like at Christmas last year, we both got together, like the rest of our family at our mum's. And again, like the amount of people I can connect with and talk about this stuff is probably like, over my last 10 years has been on one hand, probably like there's a few people, and you know straight away when you meet those people and you just connect. But yeah, like you've always been one of those people, like we just like instantly could just talk about anything. And I just remember, man, like seeing you for the first time, again, it's like you avoid these conversations initially and like you just do the normal stuff. But I just remember like waking up, going outside, meditating together. Then we'd just like, mum would bring out like a pot of tea and we'd just sip on tea. And then you'd take me through some yoga. And then we'd just like read, and then we'd just talk, and then all of a sudden it's like 12:30. We just had like three cups of tea, and it was just like such flow mode, man. Like it was just, and it just sticks in my brain. Like we did that for like 3 days, and it's just like if I could start every day like that, like whoa,
like, such a special like place and setting, right? Like it was perfect, absolutely perfect. I think about that a lot. I think the safety of obviously like being in a family environment, having mum's present was really important. And the tea.
She was just so happy for us to be there.
The vibes are immaculate.
And I think me and you, like we just, like I said, there's like these few people that have, but because we've been so vulnerable with each other before, it's so natural. Like you can just be yourself then. It's like so stress-free.
How nice would it be if you just felt that all the time?
All the time. Like I think everyone would love that, but we just have to play these games. It's not like I'm not walking into most of my conversations being vulnerable either. Like I'm not saying it's easy, you know what I mean? Like I'll do it.
Talk about love.
The other person's gonna be vulnerable. You start, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But like, imagine if we could, man. Like it just breaks down that initial shield. Hey, like how much time will we stop wasting? Like not like you're gonna get along with everyone, but like we just play like these games with each other. Like, oh, you're gonna, it's just a social game, isn't it? Like, imagine if we could just all tell the truth. Yeah,
agreed. And I think a lot of anxiety. Like I had this thought a while ago. A lot of anxiety comes from knowing how our character kind of needs to like feel love, and right, like the need, the importance to each person to feel love, and how you can see that in other people, right? And when they're fully in that character mind and you're fully in that character mind, like I think it's a fair enough state to not trust that person, right?
Well, you can tell, you both, your soul knows you're both playing.
So exactly, And
Because we all do it. Like there's no
yeah,
exception of anyone in the world that hasn't had to become a character
yeah,
to survive
yeah,
growing up.
yeah. And it's just not a flourishing place for people, right? Like that
Mm.
interaction is not
Mm.
a healthy, flourishing place. So I think,
Our initial reaction to that is not to trust.
yeah, yeah, and
Just builds another wall, doesn't it?
yeah, and I think power is a big part of that as well, like needing power over the other person and wanting power. But really, I think also another big part of being vulnerable would be like allowing that power. And like, because I don't know if I've really experienced it enough, but or maybe it's just a fear of mine, right? Like being vulnerable and then that other person
Not.
not, right? And but
Yeah.
that's half of it, right? Like being okay with that other person having power over you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think you have the power in that moment. Like you have the conscious awareness to go, I can be
Yeah,
vulnerable,
I can be
and whether
defenseless.
they're vulnerable or not, it's not
Yeah,
about them. It's I'm aware enough to know this is my intention. I want to be vulnerable. It doesn't
yeah,
matter what then happens, and that's easy to
yeah,
say, but
yeah,
in that moment, like especially if there's big groups, or like depends how aware you are, how
yeah,
conscious you are.
yeah,
If your intention is to be vulnerable, like I write intentions each day, and
mm.
probably the one I struggle to write down is to be vulnerable, because
Be vulnerable. Yeah,
it's probably the one that takes like, all right, am I up to being that person today? Like it's just so much easier
yeah,
not to be, isn't it? Like,
yeah, yeah.
and now I'm talking about it, I probably realize how much I've avoided.
Mm.
Like, and like I haven't done it in conversations lately. I haven't
Yeah,
probably for a while. Like,
yeah. The defensiveness, right? Like if someone was to like kind of try and take power over you or attack you in a certain way, like
hmm,
it'd be so hard to not attack back,
react. Yeah,
react. You know, it would be so hard.
yeah.
But yeah, I
You're
think
defending that
that's
character.
like the end goal, right? Like that would be
Oh
like
man,
I think, yeah, like what I said before, I'm a big fan of like starting small and growing these habits now, so that when we're in these bigger situations, it's just like the intention has grown enough that we can just
yeah.
naturally
You've
do
got to be
that.
careful though. I've gone into holes where I'm like, the monk mind, like Ram
Mm,
Dass, everyone who are so in that. But you got to understand they also live in a different world where, they can sit there and meditate all day. They don't like
yeah,
they don't have social media. They don't have all these
yeah,
things. Like this is a modern world, so you can't judge yourself for, going they're not constantly around these interactions where other people aren't
yeah,
anywhere, like have no
yeah,
idea what you're going on about. Like,
mm,
so like I don't think there is a lot of a modern take on this, because
mm,
a lot of these ancient philosophies, they're great, and they work, and they're all true, and
yeah.
science has proven a lot of these ancient philosophies about meditation and
Yeah.
all this wisdom. um but our world is different,
And the
especially with,
digital world is just a new beast, right?
oh man.
It's a whole new
Yeah,
beast.
try
Dorothy
not to
talks
judge
about it a
yourself
lot.
when you go on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, proper.
Oh man, the guilt I feel, like, oh, this
Yeah.
person's doing this with their life, and
Yeah.
like even just
Yeah.
overseas,
The
like
comparison.
felt like I had to, like, why have I visited the Colosseum if I haven't let people know I'm at the Colosseum? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then my like true self's like, but then I'm judging myself for not being
Yeah.
present, because
Yeah.
I should be present in this moment, just enjoying it. I don't need to tell people.
Yeah.
But then like the unconscious self takes over and posts
Mm.
it, like it's, but then yeah, it's that loving kindness, isn't it? Just coming, and it's taking moments and just making, and that's why for me my practice is so big. Like for an hour and a half each morning, I get to forget about having to be someone else.
Yeah.
And that's usually enough. Even though then I go straight into being this character.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, all day. But that's where I probably need to set that vulnerability, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think it's maybe something we can try and maybe get an intention on or figure out over the next few podcasts is how to deal with that.
yeah.
Right? Like how to deal with the judgment and like how to deal with the interaction with the digital world, right?
Which is in there, especially in our jobs, you have to I have to be on my computer all day.
All day. Yeah.
All day. And at the end of the day, it's so taxing that my brain's fried.
Yeah.
And trying to then be conscious after that is just like I've used all my energy.
Yeah.
You know, like
proper.
Your brain, it's just so much easier than to just sit down and watch a video or, you know, be distracted.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's stressful when you know it's not right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it should be, you know.
Yeah. The judging mind is it's a taxing thing, I find. And then you're just at the end of it and you're like, fuck. I'm exhausted.
That's the challenge though, isn't it? You got the experience.
Yeah. I've been meditating at lunchtime at the moment.
Oh, cool.
So I like go to the park, sit on the grass. I recently found the courage to take my shoes off.
I love
it. So I'm just sitting in a park in my work uniform, my work outfit, my business attire, shoes off, in the park in the sun, meditating. But that took a long time. Like this is my second year in the job, and it's just gotten to that. Like, and just like everyone watching and
I feel like if we can set like a challenge to each other to do one thing like that each week, let go of what other people think. You know, and like you said, the more you do that, the more it creates those challenges, those habitual patterns.
Yeah.
I've
got a big end goal, I think, for me.
Yeah.
I've got a huge end goal. So
you want to put it into the universe?
I'm gonna put it out right now. So growing up, right, I did a bit of dancing. And I think I loved it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? But boys don't dance. All right.
Boys
don't bloody dance.
Not in our household, anyway.
Not in our household.
Oh, girl.
And I've had a lot of opportunities. Maybe not a lot. Maybe like 5 or 6 in my adult life where I've had the opportunity to dance, but I've turned it down out of fear.
Yeah.
Or something's come up, right?
How convenient.
Like, okay. Agreed. So that's a real vulnerability end goal for me, is to dance in a public setting, not under intoxication of alcohol. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Do you have an end goal, or do you just have like a
few
things you're scared to doing?
Like I said, like breaking the habit of being yourself.
Yeah.
I think at the moment, like each day, like I really enjoy my job, but I was like, it's this perfectionism and like constant worry about like I have to be this person. So a lot of my intention at the moment is just being myself, and like it's not caring, because I care about like I care about how I treat people, right? And I care about what happens to people, but it's essentially not caring how people perceive me. Which is like that. It's like dancing in public, isn't it? It's like you know. So I'm just I don't know what that end goal is. I'll think about it. But it's definitely my big intention each day is just to like trust, just to be myself, you know, like no, and that I guess that's the challenge. But I'll have a think of like, it's even hard to think about like what I want to be and committing to it. Like at the moment, posting this podcast is probably, you know, a big thing for me. So we'll see. It's been an hour. So like, I guess for you, like, any closing thoughts? Like why I've talked a bit about like why I'm doing the podcast, like what's this for you?
Yeah, I've been trying to grow, I guess. I mean, honestly, it's just like feels like an exercise in growing that intuition and listening to that intuition more and stopping the and really seeing the fear. Like it become like when you do stuff like that, like this, like it is so obvious, right? Like the fear is just like right there in your face, right? Like it's so easy to see that you can't ignore it. And I think becoming acquainted to fear and really seeing it for what it is, I think is my intention at the moment, is seeing that fear and using it as a friend to find my kind of dharma, because I feel a bit lost at the moment in regards to direction and purpose and dharma and all that. But I think also I feel like this is just the practice, right? Like this is the practice, us growing, I mean, growing the intuition and following fear. That's my practice, and that's why I'm doing this. Yeah.
There's dharma.
Yeah.
Should you explain what dharma is?
Hey.
Should you explain what dharma is? Or dharma?
So there's a So I would describe it as like your purpose, right? Like as your, if there was a controller in your body that didn't have all this kind of ego and self-made I, this illusion, your dharma is what that controller would do. Yeah, I would say dharma, it's like your natural like intuition,
your soul's purpose.
Your soul's purpose, yeah.
Yeah.
Proper, without the ego, the illusion. I mean, it's how we would act without the illusion.
Yeah. If you remove everything else, it's what's left.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's like a yeah. It's like why this is just me taking, I can't remember what book it was from, but this, I don't know, this monk guy he explained Dharma in a way that this monk he keeps saving I can't remember what animal it was, but it was like a scorpion falls into a river and he saves it and it bites him on the way out, right? And he just keeps doing that, like it keeps biting him, he keeps saving him, and it's the scorpion's dharma to bite the human and it's the human's dharma to save the scorpion.
To
say. Yeah, like it's not a bad thing that the scorpion's biting him or he's feeling pain. He's just doing what feels right, what he's meant to be doing, right? Yeah. And that's dharma to me.
There's so much distraction from that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the Western world is built to distract ourselves from our dharma.
Yeah, proper. Literally, it's all distraction. Hey, it's crazy how we've just made this into a massive thing.
Oh man, it's hard because I feel like when I meditate, like sometimes I just laugh because like I just look at the trees and the sky. I'm like, man, life's so simple.
Yeah. That is literally just treeing there, like just.
Oh man, how cool is that tree? Like its job is to sway in the wind.
Sway. And it gets a few hundred years of just looking.
A few hundred years, and it's like the things it's seen, man.
Yeah.
And like I'm just.
Felt.
Yeah, and then I like snap. 30 seconds later, I'm unconscious again, and I'm like,
gotta clean the floor
for a second because there's a million things going on.
Gotta clean the floor.
Man, those
Gotta
there's
do the
that one
dishes.
dirt mark on the floor. Yeah, haven't checked the footy scores.
So much to do.
So much
So
to
little time.
doing.
Yeah,
Oh man,
that's funny.
that's funny. I think that's a good way to end the podcast there on Dharma.
Yeah. Agreed. I don't know I don't know if I got it right or anything, but that's what it means to me anyway. So that's all that really matters, right?
I really like that perspective on it, analogy.
Cool. All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Mum, Dad.
Yeah.
No one else
Agreed.
that's listening. But
Yeah.
not the point. The point
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. Agreed. No, it's been lovely chatting, and we'll do it again soon.